With the second choice in the draft, the San Diego Chargers select quarterback, Washington State University, Ryan Leaf.
You're listening to Bustin Out, the stories of the greatest that never made it.
Welcome back to Bustin Out. This is our second deep dive.
That's right.
If you tune in for our first, you know we're fascinated by those high draft picks, the athletes with all the promise who, for various reasons, just didn't pan out as expected.
Yeah, last time was Darko Milicic. Quite the story there.
It really was. And today, we're hitting the gridiron to examine the career of Ryan Leaf.
Ryan Leaf. The second player chosen in the 1998 NFL draft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Drafted right behind Peyton Manning, a name, well, everyone knows Leaf arrived in San Diego with just enormous expectations. He was seen as the potential franchise quarterback for the Chargers.
The hype was definitely intense. I mean, huge.
But as many of you probably know, his NFL story took a very different turn.
Yeah, his time in the league was brief, marked by some pretty significant struggles, both on the field and personally, including those well-documented battles with addiction and, the serious consequences that came with them.
Right. So in this deep dive, we're going to explore his journey from his standout college career that made him a national name through those rocky years in the NFL and into his life after football.
And we'll also try to put his rookie season in context, look at how he compared to some other quarterbacks who entered the league the same year.
And ultimately, we'll try to answer that big question.
Yeah.
Looking back, was Ryan Leaf a bust? Okay, let's unpack this, starting with what made him such a coveted prospect in the first place.
Well, before the NFL, Ryan Leaf was just dominant at Washington State University. His junior season, 1997, was truly remarkable.
Yeah.
He led the Cougars to their first Pac-10 championship in, get this, 67 years.
Wow, 67 years. That's incredible.
Right, and secured their first Rose Bowl appearance in just as long. It was a program-changing season, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. And the numbers he put up that year were kind of eye-popping.
Oh, definitely. He set a Pac-10 record at the time, 33 touchdown passes during the regular season, over 3,600 passing yards.
And that's just the regular season.
Exactly. Including the Rose Bowl, it jumps to 34 touchdowns and nearly 4,000 yards. His passing efficiency was also way up there, second nationally.
So he wasn't just putting up stats, he was getting recognized too.
He was. Pac-10 Offensive Player of the Year, first team All-Pac-10, and he won the Sammy Baugh Trophy, which goes to the top college passer in the country.
And let's not forget the Heisman Trophy voting. He finished third.
The third place, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is still the highest finish for any player from Washington State. And think about who was ahead of him. Charles Woodson, who won it, and Peyton Manning.
That really underscores the kind of season he had being in that company.
And physically, I mean, he had everything NFL teams look for. Big guy, 6'5", around 245 pounds.
Prototypical size.
Totally. And the scouting reports consistently praised his, exceptional arm strength, accuracy, even his athleticism for that size. Some scouts, they actually believed his raw arm talent might have been better than Manning's.
Better than Manning's. That's hard to imagine now, but okay. That allure of the raw talent.
Exactly. Sometimes that can make teams maybe overlook potential red flags.
It seems his college coach, Mike Price, played a big part in getting him there too. Wasn't there a story about the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, apparently while Leaf was watching the Rose Bowl as a recruit, Price told him, if you come here, we're going there.
Talked about calling your shot. And it actually happened.
It did. So by the time he declared for the NFL draft, Ryan Leaf had really left his mark on Washington State football. He held, I think, 3 career and 6 single-season passing records there. The anticipation for him going pro was definitely justified by what he did in college.
Okay, so the buzz is building. It's 1998. All eyes in the football world are on the draft, pretty much because of these two guys, Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf.
Yeah, the Manning versus Leaf debate was everywhere, dominated sports talk.
What's interesting looking back is how they were viewed, right? Leaf was often seen as the one with maybe the higher ceiling.
That was the thinking, yeah. More upside, the powerful arm, the athleticism. Some thought he could be a real game changer, maybe even more accurate than Manning down the line.
That's definitely the narrative I remember. Leaf was the exciting, maybe riskier pick with huge potential, and Manning was seen as, what, more polished?
Safer. Exactly. Manning's strengths were seen as his maturity, leadership, that intense competitiveness, and just his overall football IQ. His ability to read defenses, his pro readiness, those were seen as big advantages.
And it wasn't just fans arguing. I remember hearing about an ESPN poll that actually favored Leaf.
Yeah, surprisingly, an ESPN poll at the time leaned towards Leaf being the better pro prospect. That just shows you how high people were on his potential and how divided the evaluations were.
So the Indianapolis Colts have the first pick.
Yeah.
Big decision.
Huge. And they ultimately chose Manning. There were several factors, apparently. Concerns about Leaf's maturity. Some behavioral red flags were already sort of popping up. Manning's leadership really impressed them. And then there was that infamous incident where Leaf skipped the Colts interview at the NFL Combine.
Oof. Yeah, you just can't do that. Skipping the interview with the team holding the #1 pick, not a good look.
Definitely not. And I also heard reports that in the pre-draft workouts, the Colts were actually more impressed with Manning's arm strength than maybe they expected to be.
Interesting. So maybe that arm talent gap wasn't as big as some thought.
Could be. Bill Polian, the Colts president then, he put it pretty bluntly when talking about their risk assessment. He basically weighed the risk of Leaf busting out, potentially setting the franchise back years.
Right.
Against what they felt was a safer bet in Manning, who they thought would be a really good winning quarterback, even if maybe he didn't have the absolute perceived highest ceiling.
Makes a lot of sense in hindsight, doesn't it? Okay, so Manning goes #1 to the Colts. The San Diego Chargers are sitting there, desperate for a franchise QB.
And they make a big move. They traded up one spot with the Arizona Cardinals to guarantee they got Leaf at #2.
And it cost them a lot, right?
Oh, yeah. A massive haul. They gave up their 3rd overall pick, a future first-rounder, a second-rounder, and even a proven veteran player, Eric Metcalf, who was a 3-time Pro Bowler. That's a huge investment for one guy.
Wow. They clearly believed he was the guy, the missing piece.
No question. And they backed it up with a record-setting rookie contract, too. $31.25 million over 4 years with an $11.25 million guaranteed signing bonus.
That was the largest ever for a rookie at that time, wasn't it?
It was. Largest ever. Set the bar.
And Leaf himself wasn't exactly shy about expectations. There was that quote.
Oh, the famous quote. He declared he expected a 15-year career, a couple of trips to the Super Bowl, and a parade through downtown San Diego.
Man, knowing what happened, that quote is just tough to hear now. Okay, so he arrives in San Diego, massive contract, huge expectations. How did things actually start out on the field for the Chargers?
Well, there was actually a very brief, glimmer of hope. The Chargers won their first 2 games of the '98 season.
That's right. I remember the opener against Buffalo. It wasn't perfect. He fumbled the first snap, threw a couple picks.
Right, some mistakes, but they got the win. He did throw a touchdown pass.
But that optimism didn't last long, did it?
Not at all. Week 3 against the Chiefs was just a complete meltdown. He completed 1 pass, 1 out of 15 attempts.
On a completion.
For 4 yards. Threw 2 interceptions, fumbled 4 times, lost 3 of them. Just an abysmal performance.
And the problems weren't just on the field that week, unfortunately. The locker room incident.
Yeah, the infamous exchange with the reporter from the San Diego Union-Tribune. Caught on camera, very unprofessional language. He apologized later, but the damage was done. Hurt his reputation immediately. Probably started eroding support within the team and fan base.
It really felt like things just spiraled downwards from there, didn't they?
Pretty much. He got benched the next week, week 4, after throwing 4 picks in the first half. He did start against Manning and the Colts in week 5. Their stats looked kind of similar on paper, but Manning threw the only TD. Leaf got sacked 4 times.
And he eventually lost the starting job for good that season.
Yeah, after another poor game against the Broncos in November, that was pretty much it for his starting role as a rookie.
And the final rookie stats were just rough.
Rough is an understatement. Completion percentage, just over 45%. 2 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. A QB rating under 40. Those are just not the numbers you expect or can accept from a #2 overall pick.
And it wasn't just the play. Reports started coming out about other issues.
Yeah, strained relationships with teammates, with the media. He was reportedly quick to blame others. And then there were the accusations about his work ethic, choosing golf over studying film.
That's never a good sign.
Not at all. There were some pretty damning quotes from inside the organization. GM Bobby Beathard apparently said he'd never seen a guy that worked harder at alienating his teammates.
Wow. alienating teammates.
Even respected veterans like Junior Seau and Rodney Harrison apparently complained to management. Harrison called the '98 season a nightmare because of Leafs' immaturity.
Just a complete disaster that rookie year. Then 1999 comes around, and he's out for the whole season with a shoulder injury.
Right, missed the entire '99 season. You'd think maybe that time off could be a chance to reset, maybe mature a bit. Well, he did come back in 2000. Started 9 games. Sports Illustrated even put him on the cover, back from the brink, suggesting maybe a comeback was possible. There was some hope again.
But it didn't really stick, did it?
Yeah.
The inconsistency was still there.
Yeah, same issues. Games with multiple interceptions that really hurt the team. And the off-field stuff continued too, like reports he lied about a wrist injury so he could go play golf.
Oh boy. Not learning lessons, it seems.
It appeared that way. There was one game I remember where 3 different Chargers QBs, including Leaf, all threw an interception. Not exactly a banner day for the offense.
Yikes.
He did have one statistically good game against Denver, career highs in rating, yards, TDs, but they still lost. And another game, a win against KC, he threw 2 early TDs, but then the offense just stalled. More interception issues later.
So the 2000 stats were maybe slightly better, but still not great.
Marginal improvement, maybe 50% completion, 11 TDs, but still 18 interceptions. His overall record as a starter for the Chargers ended up being just 4 wins and 18 losses.
4-18. That's...
Yeah. Ultimately, the Chargers cut him in February 2001. His time there ended with just 13 touchdown passes and a whopping 33 interceptions. That ratio really tells you everything.
So after the Chargers, did he get other chances in the league?
Briefly, he was claimed by Tampa Bay, but they released him before the season started. Issues with that wrist injury lingered, and apparently he refused to take a pay cut and be a backup.
Okay.
Then he had a short stint with the Dallas Cowboys. Started 3 games, went 0-3, only 1 TD, 3 picks.
Not much better there.
No. And his NFL journey basically ended after being on the Seattle Seahawks practice squad for a bit.
So after the NFL career ended, he kind of vanished from the football world for a while. What happened next?
Well, he went back to Washington State, finished his degree, which is good. He actually tried coaching for a bit at West Texas A&M.
Oh, yeah. How did that go?
Didn't last long. It ended when he allegedly asked a player for pain medication, which, sadly, seems like an early warning sign for the struggles that were coming.
Right. The addiction issues that became such a big, difficult part of his life story.
Exactly. By his own account, his addiction to prescription pain pills really took hold around 2004. He pinpointed a moment after being booed at a boxing event.
What did you say about that?
He described it powerfully, said his addict brain heard, not only are you a terrible football player, but you are an awful human being. And then about the pills, I didn't feel that judgment. I didn't feel that fear. I didn't feel that less than. I didn't feel anything. It really gives you a window into that mindset.
That's incredibly sobering.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that led to a really dark period, didn't it? The legal troubles.
It did. Multiple arrests in 2012, burglary, theft, drug possession. He pleaded guilty, served prison time in Montana. There was also a probation violation in Texas, but he got credit for time served. He got out of prison in 2014.
And there was another issue more recently, too, right?
Yeah, sadly, his legal issues weren't completely over. He pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor domestic violence charge in 2020.
But despite those setbacks, the story seems to have taken another turn since his release from prison.
It really has. What's truly notable is the path he's taken since. He's become a program ambassador for Transcend Recovery Community. He's really dedicated himself to helping others struggling with addiction.
Yeah, I've seen him doing a lot of advocacy work. He had a radio show, worked as a college football analyst on TV for ESPN, Fox.
Right. He's been very open, very vocal about mental health, addiction recovery, travels around, shares his story. He said in one interview, in reality, when you make it about other people, your life actually gets better.
Right.
That really speaks volumes about his transformation.
It really does. Although, and there was that recent incident, the tweet about Josh Allen that got some attention. Showed a bit of that old intensity, maybe.
Yeah, that did happen. He directed a pretty aggressive tweet at a journalist critical of Allen. He deleted it quickly, though, and apologized, called it a flawed attempt at humor. He even mentioned something his young son said, like, we all make mistakes, Dad. It's just a reminder, I guess, that recovery and growth are ongoing things, right? Sometimes there are bumps in the road.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've looked at his career, his life after football. But let's circle back to that 1998 draft class. How did his rookie year really stack up against the others beyond just Peyton Manning?
Well, the contrast with Manning's rookie year is, as you expect, pretty stark. Manning started all 16 games, threw for almost 3,800 yards. 26 TDs, though. Granted, he had 28 picks as a rookie, too.
Right, even Manning struggled with picks early on.
He did. But Leaf, in his 9 starts, barely cracked 1,200 yards, just those 2 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. It's just, well, a night and day difference statistically.
And what about the careers some of those other QBs drafted in '98 went on to have? Because it wasn't just Manning and Leaf.
No, definitely not. And it shows you draft position isn't everything. Charlie Batch, second rounder, played 15 seasons, mostly as a reliable backup, won 2 Super Bowl rings with the Steelers.
Solid career.
Very solid. Brian Grease, third rounder, was a respectable starter for several years. And Matt Hasselbeck, way down in the 6th round.
Hasselbeck, yeah, he had a great career.
Pro Bowler, led the Seahawks to a Super Bowl. So you had guys drafted much later who had significant success.
It's fascinating. And it even makes you think about guys who weren't drafted at all around that time, like Kurt Warner or Doug Flutie, who had amazing careers too.
Exactly. Warner entered the league the same year, became a Hall of Famer. Flutie came back to the NFL in '98 after playing elsewhere and had success. It just shows there are so many paths, and being a top pick guarantees absolutely nothing.
Okay, so we've laid it all out. The massive hype, the disappointing NFL career, the very real personal struggles, the post-football redemption arc. We have to ask the big question, the one in our show's title, really. Was Ryan Leaf a bust?
Well, if you use the standard definition of an NFL bust, a high pick who just fails to live up to those expectations, fails to produce anywhere near that level, then yeah, the evidence is pretty overwhelming.
Number 2 overall pick, huge contract.
Exactly. The on-field performance was, undeniably a massive disappointment. The short career, the terrible stats, the reports about attitude and work ethic, it all points towards that label.
And you just can't ignore the comparison to Manning, picked right before him, who became an all-time great. That contrast just makes it look even starker.
It absolutely does. However,
Yeah.
and this is a big however, it's also really crucial, I think, to acknowledge the role his personal struggles played, the addiction, the mental health challenges.
Right. They don't excuse everything, but they provide context.
Exactly. They provide vital context. They help explain maybe some of the reasons behind those struggles on and off the field. It's a more complex picture than just looking at stats.
It really is. It goes way beyond just football performance. It's a human story, a complicated one.
Precisely. So while, yeah, the bust label fits his NFL career, fits that unfulfilled potential, his story didn't end when his playing days did. His current work in recovery, helping others, his advocacy, that adds a really significant, important final chapter.
So it's a legacy that's kind of cautionary, but also, in a way, hopeful now.
I think that's a good way to put it. Cautionary, yes, but ultimately, maybe hopeful too.
Well, this has been a truly insightful and, yes, sometimes difficult story to dig into. Thank you for taking this deep dive into Ryan Leaf's career with me.
My pleasure. Always interesting to revisit these stories.
Thanks for tuning in to Bustin' Out. If you found this deep dive into one of the NFL's biggest what-ifs interesting, please make sure you subscribe or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You won't want to miss our next exploration into the world of sports prospects who didn't quite pan out. We'll catch you next time.